on a recent camping trip with my oldest friend, someone who I've known since I was about 5 or 6 years old. One morning, I remember, I don't know exactly how the flow of conversation went, but he was talking about the need for universal health care and the need to tax the rich, and talking about some ideas that he very strongly believes in, as far as I guess making our country a better country or making the world a better place. But I think we were just talking about our country. That's what I was focusing on. And so, from my perspective, I remember that I was just sitting there. We had had our coffee, and I might have had something for breakfast already. But I was just chilling. And I'm always coming from this space, at least recently in life, where I'm at usually is that when I'm with people that I love, I just want to um, enjoy their presence and have a good time. And any form of conversation, if it brings about tension, I'm not interested in it, and I don't enjoy it. And it became very clear very quickly that we were in two different spaces because I guess what I was doing, what I often do is he was talking about, he was sharing what I just said, his ideas about what he thinks we should do. And in a way, I'm just a person now is sort of automatically programmed to do this. I play devil's advocate in a sense, not even creating an argument, but then I was just because in general, the things that he was talking about would involve giving more power to a government, making a larger government, one that has more control over us. Of course, it wasn't in a dark and sinister way that he was envisioning this future. He was talking about good things, and ideally, it would be the government would have more power, but it would use it for good in this scenario. And I was just my responses were kind of like short, but asking I was just asking him, well, what about personal liberty and freedom, and I guess questioning the idea of giving more power to government. I was like I said, it was early in the morning. I was still just it's like I thought we were just having a conversation or playing with ideas, but then it became clear that he was, I don't want to say emotional, but it's like there was, I could see or feel stress in his tone of voice. Maybe it was emotion, maybe it's just passion. I don't think there's anything wrong with caring, and I'm not even faulting. I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to say, oh, I was, in control and he wasn't or anything like that. It's not that at all. It's just that clearly he had a passion for this topic, um, and there was emotion, and I think an annoyance with me, and me just sitting there kind of shrugging my shoulders saying whatever, because in reality we're just sitting, you know being in each other's presence in a campsite, having a conversation. But it seemed like it really bothered him that I didn't care as much as he did, or that's what it felt like. He wanted me to care more. But then it became more clear, or what it felt like, that really what he was, and he explained this, that maybe what was more annoying, or what was kind of triggering him in that way, was the fact that it was clear that I didn't really even want to have that conversation. It wasn't about me going against the ideas, or about me not agreeing with him. It was about me sitting there just like almost too chill, like too detached, not caring about that, having that conversation, not really being interested in that conversation. And he explained how he feels that, yeah, maybe you're not going to be the one, or I'm not going to be the one who's going to change the world, or who's going to really become involved in politics. Of course, I guess the most or the least we can do is to inform ourselves and then vote accordingly, right? And in that sense, he was just saying that, it's good to have these conversations, even if you are just going to kind of like, if someone is going to drop out from society or something like that and not even take part in it, it's still good to have the conversations. And I agree completely. And that made me I was thinking about that. I've been like reflecting on that moment of the trip a lot since I've returned. And I was thinking back, and I remember in the past, a long time ago, late teens, early 20s, I think I was thinking a lot along those terms. Like I was thinking about humanity as one thing, as like this collective consciousness, like hive mind, like how can we evolve the species, and like thinking about moving the species forward. And I was focusing on like that, yeah, like a top down bird's eye view of us on this planet. And I remember struggling with a lot of things and feeling like, I guess, helpless or feeling a lot of pain. There were moments where I felt like I was feeling the pain of all of us, of everyone. It hurt me a lot to look at everything from that perspective. Um, and some of what was going on with it was there were things that I didn't even become aware of until later, but I was having my own personal issues that maybe we could categorize as mental health issues, but really it was just like personal developmental issues. Like I just wasn't where I needed to be or where I should have been. Wasn't focusing on, I wasn't progressing that much, maybe in some ways, but in other ways I was just like lost during that time. And throughout, as more years passed, I guess I became aware of all of that, and I refocused everything onto myself, because me pondering the future of the, or more importantly, me feeling the pain of of imagining all of that, like imagining and visualizing and trying to be conscious of where we are as a whole. It like bummed me out, and it's specifically as I started to learn more information about like the depth of the corruption in this country and how far back it goes back in history, and how I guess going back to what I mentioned earlier, like healthcare, how the whole system is designed to keep us sick, make us sick, and to keep us sick. I mean, it works in tandem with like the food industry and everything that's promoted. I mean, if you, it's just what's on television. It's basically what I'm talking about. Commercials for fast food and toxic foods, showing people happily eating toxic foods, and then commercials about uh, things related to healthcare and medications, and it's like a vicious cycle. And it's about getting you sick in the first place, and then keeping you sick, and just profiting on both sides of the downfall of the individual. Like it's just a sick, dark, and twisted society that I feel that we live in. Um, but me, years and years ago, being caught up in that and being so like sad about that, and really like I let it get to me a lot and disturb me, which is a good thing, I think. I mean, the fact that I was like at least aware of it, but it became clear that that was like, it's like we only have so much energy as an individual, and I was putting way too much energy into that, into worrying about or feeling sick about or being disturbed by all of this stuff that really in that moment I didn't have any control over. And on a personal level, I was lost and just kind of floating around. I didn't have any solid footing, I guess. So part of me focusing in my life and beginning to take the steps that I needed to in order to progress as an individual and create something for myself, and begin to have success within this sick society, was just to kind of not focus on that perspective as much, the human species as one thing perspective, and focus on me as an individual. What do I need to do, taking the steps I need to take in order to progress in life and create something and better myself, and move closer toward where happiness might exist. And I think along the way, I ended up like lumping so many things together where I felt like, where I did feel like I didn't want to have those conversations anymore. Because I felt like it was just, it's a hopeless thing. Um, uh, Yeah, I had become, I guess the word might be apathetic to that concept that I or anyone is going to change the direction of this machine that is just eating us alive. Uh, I've often felt that like the only way to change it would be to actually kill people. Not me. That's not something that I would ever do, but people and groups that are in charge of all of this shit that I see as evil. I had often felt in the past that it would be like, well, like voting isn't going to change shit because from my experience so far in life, my vote has never gone. It's never gone my way. It's almost never gone my way. It's like, okay, well, just that shit didn't change anything. Like the entire the direction of everything as a whole is going in the same way. Um, I know that's arguably not the case, but from me as an individual, like casting a vote and then watching how, oh, yeah, it didn't work. It just never works. Um, that doesn't mean that we should stop, that we should not vote. Of course, I've just always felt weird about that whole thing because it just the system itself is rigged, and the things that matter aren't changing. The things that matter, we don't even get to vote on. You know, did I vote on a lockdown, for example? Did I vote to be locked down, have society locked down with the whole COVID shit? No, and I don't believe I would have. So when it comes down to it, like at the end of the day, what I have seen so far is that when it comes down to really important things, it's like, yeah, you don't get to vote on this. You know what I mean? You don't really get to vote on this. You get to, vote on a few things that make you feel like you're doing something, but it's still the train is just fucking, barreling down the tracks in the same direction. So because of all that, because of that unique perspective, maybe it's not that unique, but because of that perspective that I've had, I did reach this space where it was like I don't even want to have those conversations. Why talk about it? I'm not going to change it. And I learned how to focus so much on or how to be present and just mindful in the present moment. And for example, going back to sitting in the campsite with my oldest friend, in moments like that, I still to this day, I'm like breathing, I'm listening. We may be conversing, maybe not, but I'm like exercising mindfulness to a certain degree. I don't mean to sound like it's not like some monk or that I'm really good at it or something like that and that I'm just like, zenned out all the time. But I just try to be present and enjoy the people that I love when I am with them. And even when I'm not with people that I love, I try to be present and enjoy the things that I love or just to focus on what's good about this because this will come to an end very soon for all of us. When I say very soon, I just mean that life is short and it's relatively fast. It's going to be gone. It's going to be over with before we know it. And that's what matters a lot to me. And that is living like that has been a great thing for me. Versus living in my head and thinking about these ideas and having that desire to like change society and mold society and whatever. But the lesson that my friend taught me in saying what he said or in having that conversation, whether he meant to or not, was that yeah, we still should and I still should. Especially if someone's like online, why couldn't I make a video about something? I think I've been in places where I want to talk about something, but then I realize I almost feel like a hypocrite or just like I'm talking out of my ass because I'm speaking about I would potentially be speaking about ideas or changes to be made or whatever that I really am never going to take part in, that I'm not interested in taking part in. Because me as an individual, I, at least right now in my life, sure things may change. I'm sure that when I have children, a lot will change in the way that I see myself in relation to my family and in relation to the world and the species or whatever. But I'm in no position where I feel like I want to, like I don't even have the desire anymore to want to save us. It's probably still there, but I've like turned away from that and focused more on saving myself because I was falling into like a pit of darkness and depression for a while. And I've since climbed my way out of it. I'm doing very well, relatively speaking, to that moment or to that phase in time where I was struggling a lot internally. And most of it was silent, and I never talked to anybody about it, or little hints and stuff like that. But and relatively speaking, thinking about others that I know who have had a seriously hard time, it really was just mild what I was going through. To speak about it like it was this dark pit of despair and depression, it wasn't that bad. Relatively speaking, it wasn't that bad. But that's how I viewed it, and that's what it felt like was happening. So I had to use all of the energy that I had available to me at the time to focus on that. And then I created that habit of just continuing to live like that, arguably living in a very selfish way, putting all of my energy into myself and those that I love and those around me, but probably more into myself because I felt like I needed that. No one's, that's the thing is when any of us are in some do or die situation, or if we're sinking in some way, shape, or form, relying on another to come and save you or hoping for that, praying for that, isn't a very good strategy. One must do the work and save yourself. And I've learned the value in that. But anyway, to go back to the point of this, the larger lesson, I guess, to be learned is that I have admittedly focused too much on that. It's still very important that I put the majority of my energy into my own personal life and growing and doing the work and creating the life that I want, because I lived so long just floating and being lost that I fell behind a lot. I fell pretty far behind when it comes to personal growth and where I want to be right now. But I'm on track now, and things are much better. And it is important to have conversations about things that maybe feel uncomfortable. And what was uncomfortable, again, to go back to that moment during that conversation, was that I was just trying to chill. I was in a relatively non-emotional state, just calm and like peaceful. And my friend was getting, I viewed, I could describe the energy as annoyed, stressed, angry. The tone was getting like heated, but on my end, I was just remaining calm because we weren't engaged in an argument. It was just clear that one person had more passion than the other about this topics, or maybe I don't know what that was, but I don't blame my friend. He didn't do anything wrong. He clearly cared, and I didn't care, and I think that made it more annoying for him, made him more angry. Um, and I can understand that. I can understand how you can care a lot about something, and then somebody that you love doesn't care about it, or they don't show that they care about it, and it's like that bothers you because we all want each other to be on the same page. We all, it's like, what do you mean you don't like chocolate ice cream? How could you not like chocolate ice cream? That's my favorite ice cream. It's that whole thing, but much more complex than that. But it's that idea of like, what? You don't like what I like, or you don't believe in what I believe in? Even though that's not exactly what this was, because and it was true. He was not angry about that, but it was just the not caring. You don't care about this. You should care about this. But when it's all said and done, the point is having conversations is good, because maybe speaking about concepts and ideas, even if I don't care enough to ever do anything about it, and I'm never going to lift a finger to make the change, maybe just through the conversation and through the spreading of ideas um, and perspectives and just talking things out, somebody else who is a part of the conversation, or somebody else who hears it, if it was a video, maybe that would be enough to inspire them or plant a seed in them, and they will become one of those people who's going to do the work or take the action that needs to be taken in order to make that change, or move us in that direction, even if I'm not going to be that person, at least not right now. And anyway, that was just a valuable lesson, I guess, that took place recently in my life during that camping trip. It was a great trip. Um, I shared a picture. Some of you saw that picture. It was so beautiful out there. And I think, well, I know that I have been lacking that. I would like to do that much more frequently, to go camping in a tent and experience, even if it's only 2 nights, experience that time away from everything. I didn't have a cell phone signal out there. And it just feels good. Feels good to do that. Partly because I went on camping trips growing up as a child, so there's that connection there. But yeah, in reflecting on that conversation and that whole exchange that we had, I have been hoping. I can't force anything. I don't want to force anything. But I've been hoping that maybe some of these ideas will come up and I'll talk about them in a video, because that seems like a thing that I could do. And I know, though I can't think of an example right now, I know there have been such things that I wanted to speak about, or I had a desire somewhere to speak about. And then when I thought about it, I realized it's just like, again, it's hypocritical might not be the right word, but kind of something along those lines. It was like, sure, I can make this video speaking about this thing. Maybe it's telling people to focus on something, or hey, look at this. This is important. Maybe look into this. It might be important for you to think about this thing. And then I would think about it for a second and be like, oh, I don't even think about, or I'm not even pursuing that or trying to make that change in my own area or in my own life. It's just an idea in my head that I think is good. But it was all just, that's just like overthinking, and I guess, yeah, kind of cock blocking myself when it comes to just the flow of ideas and energy, when I could just let it come out. And if the ideas, if the conversation, if the video or whatever it is, if it's a conversation with people in real life or if it's a video here, if the words, if the ideas, if the concepts, if the vision serves another in some way, then that's good. That's better than just being quiet and not sharing it. Because that is often how I am. There's a lot happening. When it comes to, maybe it's simply opinions, or it could be ideas about changes that could be made to society, or the direction that I think the human species should be moving. I often just keep it to myself and I don't talk about it, because at the end of the day, if I'm not actually living along those lines of whatever that vision is, if I'm not a part of it, it feels inauthentic to share it and being like, hey, this is the direction we should be moving. And then everyone else is like, what about you? But yeah, anyway, my friend helped me a lot to see that it doesn't matter. Having conversations is good. Speaking about the things is good, because somebody might get something from it. It might influence somebody in a positive way, even if I don't care enough to do the influencing, to make the changes, or whatever it is. I am just currently a pretty chilled out person. I haven't always been this way. Stressful events happen in life, and I lose control of my own emotions, and I get worked up about stuff too. But in general, I've just been trying to continue to grow in this direction, to increase. Maybe increase isn't the right word, but to practice patience, to practice stillness, to practice mindfulness, to practice presence, and to just breathe and just try to be in the moment, and not worry about things that I cannot change. Not worry about things that I don't have control over. I've been trying my best to move away from that, to move away from worrying and stressing and thinking too much about all of these big problems that maybe I can turn on the TV on a international news network and I can see all of these things happening around the world and think, man, this is so bad. Look at this, these fires and the flooding, and like, look at this war that's happening and all this other stuff. And it's not that I suggest turning a blind eye and pretending like it isn't happening and living in a bubble, but it's just that to have all of that floating around in my head and to make myself look at it every day, and then at the same time every day doing nothing to change it, and knowing that I will never do anything to change it, or in many of those circumstances it's just that I can't do anything to change it. That does not serve me as an individual. That does not serve me in my personal life, given my goals in life and where I'm headed and where I'm focused. I am, when it comes to a lot of that stuff, and I have learned from the past experiences, that I am a highly sensitive individual when it comes to exposing myself to such information. It will drag me down. It will actually knock me off track of my personal stuff that I'm trying to do, my personal life path. I'm sensitive enough that literally just watching news all the time and quote unquote keeping myself informed about all of these horrible things that we are being told are happening all over the planet, and these things that are being shoved in our face on such channels or networks. Yeah, it actually is enough to affect me and knock me off track and kind of push me into a dark place. And I've learned that by not being glued to it, at the very least, sure, I might check in on it, but not being glued to it and not obsessing over that in the mental space and having all of that stuff in my head has really chilled me out and allowed me to become more grounded and just gain more control over my path in life. And that is like priceless to me, considering I know I'm the only one who knows where I have been within the depths of like the darkness of my own mind, and places where, yeah, I'm the only one who really knows where I've been and how far I've come, because I have just been so private about that when it really comes down to it. Even considering videos that I've made in the past, kind of oversharing some personal issues or struggles, that certainly some of you have seen those videos. Even those, it's like not even scratching the surface when it comes to some of the just the places I've been, like I said, mentally dark places where I was so lost. And it's not the television's fault, or like, again, it's I don't it's a mistake that I'd made in the past to lump everything together, but it's not only because I was thinking about the fate of the species that's not the only thing that brought me there. But again, thinking about all of this grand stuff that I don't have control over distracted me. At the very least, it distracted me. But it is still just as fascinating as ever to have these conversations and to think about, where are we going, where should we be going, what are some possible futures for us. And typically I think about the United States because I'm from here. And admittedly, I do have a somewhat skewed perspective on this country because I've only lived in one general area of one state for my entire life. That has been my home, the Bay Area in California, Northern California. It's a unique area if you've ever lived here. I grew up the majority of my life just taking that for granted, but after having visited more places, even for short windows of time, I come back and I realize this is a very unique spot when you look at the people. And yeah, so I often make the mistake of thinking of our entire country as being like this area, and that's not the case. Yeah. Anyway, I hope to make videos speaking about some of these ideas that I guess I've hinted at in this video about the future of the direction we're moving, where I think we should be going, what would be a good idea, or just different possible futures. Because it is interesting to think about. It's interesting to share and talk about. Especially because it does trigger people. Speaking about things in one way triggers people, triggers reactions in people, and they're like, well, what about this? Or like, that doesn't sound so good because then this might happen. It's certainly not black and white. You know, the future of the human race doesn't seem to be black and white. It's not left or right. It's not a simple conversation. I don't believe there's a simple path. But again, for me as an individual, the simple way is focusing on myself, bettering myself, trying to become or becoming a better person, one step at a time, because that is attainable. It's doable. I'm doing it. It's happening. And that feels good. That feels real, being grounded in physical reality and making the changes and seeing them change feels better than swimming in like this ocean of possibilities in my mind that is just a distraction from what's actually happening. Anyway, that will be enough rambling for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.